So hi, I'm Džejms Drinkvoter. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor with the World Green Building Council's Europe Regional Network, which is a network of now over 30 green building councils like Serbia GBC, who work on green building policy, on education, and on building the network of green building councils across Europe. And we work collaboratively to solve the problems that those different nations are collectively encountering. I think it's a great conference. I've seen many conferences like this around Europe that have started off with a number of really very forward-thinking companies actually leading the green building market, and over a period of just a few years you see how much they grow, and I think it's a wonderfully professional event. And it's been very, very well organised by the Serbian Green Building Council, and great also to see ministries in attendance, the American ambassador and high-profile figures actually seeing the value of green building and showing that it is a very important public issue. Well, I think the point that you mentioned, renovation of our existing buildings, is probably the greatest challenge ahead of us now. Generally, if you look at the carbon impact of just demolishing a property, instead of actually looking at retrofitting that property, it's higher, and there's a lot that we can do with our existing buildings to improve their energy performance. But sadly, we don't really have the right legislative, the right regulatory frameworks in place, the right financing in place to enable us to really take advantage of the opportunities in our existing buildings. There are a lot of solutions out there. There are a lot of the member companies of the Serbian Green Building Council who already provide solutions to improve the energy performance, improve the livability and improve the comfort of existing homes and buildings for people. But actually it's pushing it further than we can currently go. It's doing very deep renovations of buildings to really make sure that they're far more efficient. That is important going forwards, and that's going to need support from the Serbian government and from the financial community as well. It's going to need a process of general education, and we're getting there, as you mentioned, on new buildings. New buildings are the easier side of the challenge. Renovation of our existing buildings is the harder part of the challenge, but it's where there is a huge amount of untapped potential and opportunity. Okay, so energy passports, actually there's been a process gone through in Serbia to create the energy passport, which essentially looks at various different energy performance characteristics of the building, calculates the energy performance, the expected performance of that building, and puts that into a simple rating. So in numerical terms, but also it will get an A to G rating. A if it's a very efficient building, G if it's a very inefficient building. And in Serbia, this movement's been led by a piece of EU legislation that's been in place for a little while now, the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. And this required that energy performance certificates, or passports as they're known here, are produced for buildings when they're constructed, when they're sold, or whenever they're rented. And the idea of this was to actually show people what the performance of the building that they are buying or renting actually is. And increasingly importantly, in a lot of other countries where they have these passport systems, they're used to give information to people, not just about the current performance of the property they might be buying or renting, so they have an idea how much it's going to cost them, but actually information on the improvements that could be made to that property, where they might find out further information about that. And so the evolution of the Serbian passports to actually include that sort of information, I think, is what's going to really make it connect with people in terms of what they could do to their homes. First, you need to provide people with clear and understandable data, and hopefully, as it evolves, that's what the Energy Passport is going to do. It's going to give people that visibility of what their home might cost. And equally, over time, what happens is when that basic data becomes more visible in the market, you'll start to see preferences emerging where people will start to choose more efficient properties, and that drives the whole of the market up. But obviously, governments need to provide that data. They need to make sure that actually the energy performance certificate is providing people with real performance data, and more importantly, that system is enforced to make sure that people always get certificates when they're buying or renting a property. So I think it's very much a mixture of both. We need to enable people with the data and information they need to make better decisions. We need to provide them with financial support to make the right decisions and improve their properties. But it's also about governments taking a strong long-term view on regulation and pushing standards forward, as well as actually educating people on the value of this, because people buy cars, spend tens of thousands, 10,000 euros, maybe more, on a car, which immediately loses half of its value. Equally, people spend $1,000 on a watch. that immediately loses its value. This is about investing to save money. So it's explaining the value in that to people. So when I was here in Serbia last year, there was a scheduled vote about the eco-label. And the eco-label essentially is like an energy passport, but it's about the environmental performance of a building. It's not just about the energy performance of a building. And there was a vote on this new scheme that had been prepared by the European Commission last year, but actually it's experienced a few difficulties. People realized that the scheme that was designed, it wasn't particularly perfect. So it's gone back into the design phase, and we'll know a little bit more when very shortly, in the next few weeks in fact, the European Commission will open a public consultation on resource efficiency across the building stock. And some of the measures that they're looking at to potentially drive resource efficiency are potentially a mandatory EU assessment scheme, or potentially a voluntary EU assessment scheme for the environmental performance and the resource efficiency of buildings. And that's where we expect that the new and improved eco-label will emerge. But as a voluntary system, given there are many assessment tools already out on the market, it's questionable what value that would add. I think the energy passport will be a very, very important tool for just giving people greater awareness about the energy performance of their buildings, also giving them recommendations on the things they could improve. So making sure that the right system is in place so that people get them on time and they provide useful data will be very, very important. And I think then looking at the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan of Serbia and implementing measures like creating a financing mechanism, a National Energy Efficiency Fund, so that people can make those improvements so that they actually have a little bit of help to start making those better decisions will be incredibly important. So I think in terms of areas of focus, implementing the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan and actually ensuring the energy passport provides useful data and there's the right enforcement mechanisms in place to ensure they're provided would be two great areas to focus on.